Spider-Man: No Way Home. No way it's one of our favorite Marvel movies of all time, or is it? Welcome to the Mediavania Show's review of Spider-Man: No Way Home. My name is Marty,
Matt.
And I'm Nick.
and if you like what you see here today, please give us a like, subscribe, share with your friends. Gentlemen, as we said in the intro, could this be one of our top Marvel movies of all time? For me, it is. What about y'all?
I kind of agree. That came out of this thinking that this is one of the best Marvel movies. This is a love letter to Spider-Man, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. What
Yeah,
about
it's
you?
in my top five somewhere. I don't know where exactly it settles in the pantheon, but it's up there
Yeah,
to the upper echelon of Marvel movies.
Love letter is such a great way to put it. And in this first part, we're going to be talking all non spoilers, right? So the only spoilers we'll be talking is if you've seen the trailer. There's some things that we talk about in there, and you talk about love letters because, well, a lot of classic villains from other movies are showing up in this one. It's kind of that love letter to, wow, remember these guys from decades ago now coming in here, and I thought there's no way they can pull this off. But I think they did a really good job.
yeah. And just to be clear, for the first few minutes here, our review is gonna be non-spoiler. We're not going to dive into anything until a certain point. We're going to kind of give our reviews here in a few minutes on our overall thoughts and maybe score out of 10. After that, we are going to dive the second half of this video into spoilers. So we'll give you fair warning. But until then, know that we're not going to be giving away any super crazy plot details that weren't already given away in like the main trailer.
Yep. And the other thing to touch on is, even though it is such a love letter to Spider-Man, it's enjoyable for people who don't have as a deep a connection to the character as maybe we do. Because my wife loved it, and she's seen most of the Spider-Man films because I forced her to watch them. But she doesn't love the character. She didn't grow up with the character, but she still loved the movie.
Yeah, that's great. I now, who did you guys go? That you just told me who you went with. I went with my son Andy, who's 7, and he is a gigantic Spider-Man fan. He has a Spider-Man room right now, and he's seen all of the Spider-Man movies. He's seen the 3 previous with Tobey Maguire. He's seen the 2 with Andrew Garfield, and then he's seen all 3 or the 2 new ones with Tom Holland, right? And he's seen all the Avengers, and Spider-Man is his favorite character out of all of them. So he was very excited at going into this. And this was, we went yesterday, so this was the premiere, like the opening night, sold out theater, which felt good too, by the way. Like,
Mhm.
this was the first sold out theater since the pandemic I've been to.
Hmm.
And we had people clapping, we had people cheering, we had everything. And Andy, right there, along with everybody, was cheering and clapping and like so excited. And it just warmed the geek dad, heart that I was like, oh man, this is so amazing that he's so into this and I'm so into this. We were laughing together because the movie's genuinely really funny. Of all of them are right, like all the Spider-Man movies are super funny, but this one was really great. And yeah, I went my son. How about you, Marty?
Yeah, so I went with my 3 sons. My wife hasn't seen it yet, so when we get to the spoiler review, I'm gonna have to kind of talk low or let y'all so
Yeah,
y'all
yeah.
talk, and I'll just interject then. But yeah, so I think we've seen all of them except the second Andrew Garfield. It just didn't do well, and I just never
Oh
saw
yeah,
that
the
one.
the
The one
Electro
with
one.
Electro, yeah.
Yep.
So I missed that one, but it doesn't matter. So for one who missed one,
Hmm.
and in the trailer they teased Electro coming back, it didn't matter at all.
Right,
I jumped right in. I knew exactly what was going on. You mentioned
for
big
sure.
premieres. As of this recording, it's been announced that the Thursday night release made over $50 million, which is the
Wow.
third biggest opening of all time, even during a pandemic right now,
Mhm.
behind The Force Awakens and Endgame.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, and it's like a positive push for movie theaters in general, right? Like I love going to the movies, and it was something that I dearly missed over the years that they were closed. And as things start to get back, and I feel like this is the first one that's really like
Mhm.
we're kind of back, right? Like, and
Yeah.
and hopefully back for good as we start to see these bigger like blockbusters come through. But Spider-Man is definitely the one with the most hype. It had the biggest pre-sale, and obviously the biggest sales, as Marty just mentioned. So yeah, it's exciting that movie theaters are kind of back in the big
Yeah,
way
we
right now.
we walked out, and I texted you guys immediately.
Yeah.
People were showing up over an hour early for the film so they could get the best seats, which I had not seen in a couple of years,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I was
Mhm.
nervous someone was going to spoil it walking into the theater because now this is back too, right? Where we're like, okay, we're
Hmm.
walking in the theater, people are walking
People yell
out.
stuff or talk.
And
Yeah.
Oh,
I
geez.
again, I walked in with my 7-year-old, so I'm like, we're going to the bathroom first because you're not going to get to the end of this and be like, I have to go to the bathroom. So we walked in, and that's when people were walking in, and I was so nervous because I was like trying to get in and out of there. And then even someone was like washing their hands and goes, "What movie you guys going to see?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I'm not going to tell you. I don't care. Like, stop talking to me. I don't want this movie spoiled in the bathroom on the way to see Spider-Man. Like, that's not how this is going to go down." But it was just too funny. We were laughing about it, and then me and Andy rushed out of there, got into our seats, and I was like, "We made it." Because this is something for everybody out there. Try to go as soon as possible. Like, you don't want this movie spoiled. There is some really big spoilers in this,
Mhm.
and I think
Yes, stay off
that
the internet.
yeah, it's big moments. So
Once the movie was over, I think one of my sons hit the nail on the head on why it was so good. He said that he felt like this is the first real independent Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland. And I was like, oh, that's a good point because the first one was very much Iron Man, Spider-Man. It
sure,
seems like every time
Hmm.
that Spider-Man is featured in any movie, Iron Man was around. Here,
sure,
it's like Spider-Man is now on his own, and it
yeah,
felt like a solid standalone movie. Obviously there were a little bit of tie-ins you saw from the trailer. The Doctor Strange does show up in it, but it feels like it was its own thing with its own characters.
hmm
And also, I just think the chemistry between him and NJ, it finally hit for me in this movie where it didn't really hit in the other two, but it really took hold here, making it a better movie for me overall.
Yeah, I agree because Peter and MJ started off in a relationship at the beginning of the movie, right?
hmm
So that definitely made their dynamic better.
Well, and I thought this early on in the movie, and this is just comes from being a third established movie in like, so we don't have any origin story, that we don't have to learn how he became Spider-Man or anything like that. Um, but like he's swinging around in his suit right at the beginning of the movie, and with MJ and stuff, and it's fun because like you have a 2.5 hour ride ahead of you, but all the other stuff is out of the. Oop, I hit my mic. All the other stuff is out of the way, right? Like we can get right into the like story, and the pacing of this movie I thought was really good. Someone mentioned that the pacing was off on this to me, and I totally disagreed. Like I thought the pacing right from the get-go was really great, and from beat to beat throughout, like I was invested the whole time.
My only knock on the movie probably is the overall length. To me personally, I think it
You
could
thought
have
it was
been
too long.
20 to 30 minutes shorter. There were times where I felt like, man, this scene seems like to have gone on about 1 to 2 minutes longer than what I think it should had. Again, that's me. It did obviously it's not going to ruin my overall judgment of the movie, but there were just
Mhm.
times it's like, man, if this came in at like 2:15, 2:20, it
Just like
would
a
have
little
been
tight,
perfect.
just
Yeah,
like a little tighter, like a little tighter. I think
240 is still a long movie for me.
was it 240? Like, is that
Yeah,
how
it's
long it was?
246. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm actually the other way. I actually could have stood for it to be a little bit longer because you talk about
Just keep me in there.
yeah, pacing was actually kind of fast because there's so many characters.
Mhm.
Right.
They give some of the bigger moments time to breathe, but there's some other little ones that they just kind of rush through. Like, okay, we hit this, we covered it, we have to go on to the next one because there's
Yeah.
so many characters, like so much is
Mm,
happening.
There's some really good combat scenes
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
throughout this movie, not just like a big third act combat. There's several in between that are really good.
Oh, yeah. I think we've finally kinda gotten away from the really super close cut action scenes that hide how good choreography is and how good these action scenes are. And Spider-Man does this well anyway, where the camera pulls way back to be able to see, like, just how everything goes down, and, yeah, it was really exciting. All the action scenes were super great. The set pieces were, completely over the top, and we'll get into that more in the second half of this review, but Nick, you got anything else to add before we score this thing and move on to some spoilers? Because I don't think I can talk about this any longer without getting into
Yeah,
spoilers.
we keep dancing around it, right?
We
No, I'm
do,
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's head into spoilers.
We
Okay, so
will.
let's go overall numbers. We're going to just give an out of 10 base system. Nick, what you got?
9 out of 10. It was very close to being perfect for me, but I loved it.
And where do you think it lands in your top Marvel movies? Do you think it lands top
It's
5, top 3?
It's in my top 5 range, but it's my second favorite Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man 2 is still my overall
Mm.
favorite Spider-Man movie.
Spider-Man 2 is amazing. And it's still and honestly, like here's something else that I'll just mention really quick before I give you my review. It's a 10. It's a 10. However, this movie makes all the Spider-Man movies better. And so
Mm.
it really does enhance everything. It enhances the world and like just or the universe, if you will, just all of it. And this is a 10. I think this is a top 3 Marvel movie for me. And because I'm not sure. Like Spider-Man 2 is super great, right? Like we just watched it recently and it still holds up. So if you haven't watched the first three Spider-Man, go back and watch them. Andy watches the Venom 1-3 like all the time. And I know that's like known for being one of the worst ones, but he watches that all the time. And yeah, I think this is a top 3 MCU film for me. How about you, Marty?
Yeah, so I'm going to also give a 10 out of 10. It is probably a top 5 for me. In my rankings, I'm one of those that'll change from day to day. And as far as overall Spider-Man movies, I probably may put 2 ahead of this. But here's the thing. What's interesting is my boys asked me this. They said, if you pull in the animated Spider-Man movie, where does that fall? And I was like, oh, I loved the what was it called?
Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse. That's maybe up there with number 2 for me. I don't know that I like it better than that one because that was like a perfect movie for me. But when it comes to non-animated, it for sure falls into the second place. But yeah, for me, 10 out of 10. And wow, that's good. That's a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. So
Hey,
with that,
we liked it. I believe it gets a go see this in the theater review. Yeah, you should probably go check this out.
yeah, and if you haven't seen it yet, stop right here, go see it, come back, because now we're going to head into spoiler talk.
Yeah, we're gonna give you one more second. We're gonna give you one more second. All right, turn it off. Okay, now you're here. You're still here. You're still with us. All right, so now we can talk about it.
Well, I guess probably the least kept secret or the
Yeah.
worst kept secret was that, well, the previous 2 Spider-Man do show up in this movie. So
The-
how did y'all react when that scene popped up?
real quick, and Nick, I know we're all dying to talk about this, and I won't go too far into it, but I will say that as the worst kept secret in the Marvel universe, everyone knew that they were going to be in it and dancing around the subject, not showing it in the trailers, but seeing them edited out. What I do think was still held a good secret is how they entered the movie, right? Like no one knew how they were going to come in, what the story was going to play around how they came in, and how long were they going to be in it? Was it going to be a quick cameo? Are they going to be in most of the movie? And I was pleasantly surprised. Like not only was them coming in a very cheerful moment. You get Andrew Garfield and you get Tobey Maguire very shortly after. But I thought it was at a good place in the movie, and we got them for a long time. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I actually retroactively appreciate how they didn't spoil it in the marketing now. I know we complained about it when we even did that reaction
Mhm.
video for the trailer. We're like, oh, they should have showed it, right? Everybody knows. But I appreciate it more because then I got to see it for the first time on screen when they came in. And
Yeah.
I kind of felt like my heart do a thing, right? Like I'm like, I see Andrew Garfield and then he said Tobey Maguire. And like I felt it. Like it was a physical emotion. Like I loved it. And as you mentioned, it wasn't just a glorified cameo. They're in a significant portion of the movie.
Yeah, same thing. Seeing Andrew Garfield come out of and there are videos online of people filming this. So this is something that is spoiled very heavily on YouTube right now, where I've seen thumbnails of Andrew Garfield coming out of the portal and them saying the crowd reaction of Andrew Garfield. But it's true, like that was our crowd reaction, and I was like extremely emotional like through the whole movie. Really, like it was just not like seeing them again, seeing Tobey Maguire again, having them like just come. They all acted great. Their chemistry between the three of them was
So
better. Actually, better than I expected. Right, like their chemistry was so good.
Yeah, and I really like the part. There's a part in the third act where there's just all 3 kind of talking to each other and asking questions, and the whole discussion of the web thing. It's like, wait a minute, it comes out of your hand,
Yeah, it's so
out of
funny.
your wrist.
He's like, I don't want to get into it. I don't know.
It's just it's really interesting how all these 3 were like had different little aspects. And that Andrew Garfield didn't have an MJ sort of deal. So the banter and stuff between them 2 was really good. And in the scene where Andrew Garfield shows up, it was in our theater, it was, clapping and cheering and stuff like that. So,
But
yeah.
and that's
I was
why I
gonna say,
said pre. Oh, I'm sorry, Nick. Go on.
well, so they actually even closed some arcs from those movies. Andrew Garfield got to rescue MJ in
Well,
this, and in his world, his Gwen fell, right?
yeah. So
Mhm.
And so
Marty
he
didn't
got
see that
emotional
movie.
too.
You missed that one.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Well,
right.
you'd have to
It was
kind
the
of
next
assume at this
yeah.
point. A little spoiler for Amazing Spider-Man #2, but yes, his Emma dies. He does not save, Emma.
Gwen.
Gwen,
Oh,
not
his
Emma.
yeah.
Yeah, Emma Stone. That's I keep saying her real name. Gwen Stacy. And this was his redemption, right? Like,
Mhm.
and to be able to come in and
Yeah.
save her, and that was super emotional. Like,
And
especially like those characters breaks me. Like Andrew
yeah.
Garfield sad, Tom Holland sad. Like anytime Tom Holland is sad, like I am sad. Like he is so good at emotions. Like the entire Aunt May scene was really hard, right? Like that was super
Yeah.
difficult.
Never saw that coming either. Never. I was
Yeah.
surprised at that.
I was really shocked by that too.
Surprised they did in the movie. It's crazy. Like I saw it, like they did that in she has died in some other canon storylines, right? But like
Hmm.
yeah, like I'm like, oh, they're gonna do it. They're doing this, and that's what breaks them. But then for the other two to come in and kind of lift them back up and say, yeah, we went through this exact same thing, right? Like we did this as well.
Yeah, it's kind of an abbreviated version of the comic book storyline, the One Last Day or whatever, right?
Hmm.
Where he also wipes, and then he and MJ forget each other.
Yeah,
So
it's like video game spoiler. It's the Spider-Man video game for PS4. That storyline is also in there as well. So
Oh, I didn't realize that.
yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
um,
It's really interesting too. You talked about the trailer, how the trailer that we saw was cut up for the audience because there's scenes in there that's not in the movie. One of the big ones was when Wong goes, you can't mess with time. Don't do that. You better not do that. And then
mhm.
Doctor Strange gives the wink, not in the movie.
Right,
So,
and
so, so that was cut to make you think of something else. And then also the other big one too was when this in the trailer, um, Tom Holland's jumping towards the three villains
oh
in the
yeah,
scene.
that was the big
mm,
one, right? Like because that's the one where they took out the other two Spider-Man, but I think
yeah,
it was the Mexican trailer that goofed and showed Lizard a little too long.
yeah.
So
He actually
Oh,
saw him getting
it shows his
reacting to
head
something.
getting kicked by nothing, and everyone was like, well, how did his neck, what happens to his neck? It magically gets kicked in the face. And yeah, it's funny, even on like some late night shows they showed that clip to the actors and they're like, well, what happens here? And they're like, it looked like it was just debris coming from like they were messing around a little bit. Well, changes from the trailer to the movie, one my son noticed very clearly is one of his favorite parts of the trailer is when he said, let's Scooby-Doo this crap, right?
oh
And
yeah,
in the movie, it's let Scooby do this shit. He goes,
right.
he said a bad word. He goes, that's not what he said in the trailer. And I'm like, yeah, they couldn't say that in the
That's
TV
true.
trailer.
So it's funny how they must shoot these things. Obviously, multiple scenes when they shoot the film. I wonder if they do that for the purpose, like this is going to be the trailer cut, or whether they just have different story beats and they just
Hmm.
decide to pick this one
Or
over
just
the
different
other.
takes, right, of the same scenes. Yeah.
I think
Right.
my son laughed the most at him calling Green Goblin like the flying green elf or whatnot. He's like, there's some flying green elf, and he couldn't stop laughing at that. He thought that was hilarious.
Speaking of which, holy cow, William
Mm,
Defoe did an amazing job.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I got to give them credit too. I honestly thought the villains were going to just be like, oh, here they are, and not a big part of the movie.
hmm.
Amazing job of integrating those and then making, especially Green Goblin, integral to the story. So good.
Yeah, he and Jamie Foxx were the standouts for me. Electro and Green Goblin. Willem Dafoe's.
I have a question though. Like one thing that I did notice was that the actor who played Sandman was not in it a lot, and I was like starting to think that they didn't get the actor, but it was his voice,
No, it's
right?
fine. Yeah, Thomas Hayden Church.
It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
him.
It was him, and
Yep.
then he was in it at the very, very end. They kind of showed him,
Hmm.
but I was surprised that they kept him in the sand form for as long as they did. That was just like surprising to me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had actually had the same thought. I'm like, did he not age well that they didn't want to show him on
That's what I was
screen?
thinking. Willem
Right?
Dafoe looked great.
But
Willem
yeah,
Dafoe, I mean, I thought he
yeah.
looked great, acted great. Went completely crazy at the end. And do you guys feel though that like he was the main villain of this movie, or do you feel that this movie was almost either villainless? I mean, it had lots of villains in it, right? But it kind of had that feeling of like there wasn't like a villain. I mean, I guess it was Green Goblin, but it was just like he was working to like try to save them. So this had like a different kind of feel than just a Electro movie or a Doctor
Mhm.
Octopus movie. This was like a different feeling. I mean, we could call this kind of a Sinister Six movie, if you will, like a little bit. But they weren't all like after Spider-Man, right? Like it had an interesting feel and a dynamic for like a main villain. What do you guys think
Yeah,
about that?
I would say this is like the anti-Sinister Six movie, right?
Right.
It's got a bunch of movie about a bunch of the characters in it, but they actually kind of resolve all their storylines
Hmm.
from earlier. And you're right, they're not here united. They're not united because they wanted to defeat Spider-Man, right?
Hmm.
Does think some people have said they had issue with, and I kind of see where they're coming from, Doctor Strange was right all along. This,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He
you
should have
know,
put him back.
the way this set up at the basically that whole opening act set up the rest of the 2 acts that never should have happened.
Totally. Oh
Sort of
yeah,
deal.
for sure. That fight scene between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, you're just like, as soon as Spider-Man runs away with the box, you're just like, you stupid
Yeah,
kid.
this is gonna
It's
go
like
wrong, right? Yeah.
this is not gonna work well. This is you almost see what is happening like beforehand. And Doctor Strange says is perfect in the movie. He goes, sometimes I forget you're just a kid. Like you're just not. But it kind of was like he was right, like he justified what he wanted to do at the end. And even though we brought some other things in, like let's talk about post-credit scene number one
Yeah,
with Venom.
I'm not happy with that at all.
You're not.
No, no, because
Did you guys not see Let There Be Carnage?
yes, I did.
I didn't see
See,
either of
the,
them, but you guys can go full in on spoilers. It's fine.
the spoiler for that is Tom Hardy's watching the Mysterio announcement.
Right.
So we already knew that they were bringing them in.
But I don't think they're bringing Tom Hardy in.
No, that's what bothers me. I was
Okay.
so excited to see those 2 on the screen together. I'm like,
Yeah, I
no.
think what they're gonna do, and I have a theory of this, is with the symbiote left behind, that's gonna attach to somebody and become Venom, right?
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
think that's gonna be Flash Thompson. I think Flash is our next Venom.
I think
So
And
that
he
makes
wasn't
logical sense,
in
but
the comics, yeah.
I don't like that character. I just don't think that character's a
I mean,
Venom
I'm
type.
with you. I'm totally with you, and I'm thinking that possibly Venom can change that. But we'll see. Like, we don't have an Eddie Brock in this MCU yet, or in the MCU in this Spider-Man universe yet. They could introduce him, but I don't know if that would have the same impact as like if they brought in a brand new Eddie Brock and then just attached Venom to him.
Right.
I mean,
Also,
okay,
you would know, unless they set him up as like a huge red herring, right?
right,
Yeah.
but we have this character already. We have this Flash Thompson who has been Venom in the comics,
hmm
and yeah, like I think that they're setting that up pretty well for a Venom, but.
I was upset when he disappeared. I went,
Yeah.
dang it! I wanted Tom and
Okay.
Tom together.
Yeah, Andy was really excited about that too. He's like, "Is he going to turn into Venom?" I'm like, "Well, I don't think so," and he didn't. But he got to see a little bit of Venom. I haven't let Andy watch Venom yet, so we're.
That might not be for
I
age appropriate.
haven't even seen it, so I don't know if it's okay for him. I know that it kind of pushes that R-rated boundary just a little bit more with language and violence, not so much, but yeah.
Yeah, in the Let There Be Carnage, they use their one F-bomb and they use it really well. They really do.
That's
And
funny.
in
and so
terms of setup, sorry, go ahead. Fisher.
no, go ahead.
I was saying because I was going to switch subjects if you wanted.
Yeah.
Go with
No, go on.
All right. So in terms of setup, I also think they're continuing to set up Miles, like they did in the first movie. Like we saw their version of Prowler, right? That was Donald Glover. You see, as my nephew, and then Electro, says, I thought you were black, and
I
they're
thought
like,
you were black.
I thought, that was a nice little setup for Miles again. Like they're talking about the idea and one about multiverses.
I caught that too. I kind of wish they'd leave Miles in the animated. I like him having his own thing as opposed to having to bring him into this one.
This is true, but would be cool. What if they brought in the animated one? I don't know. He lives in an animated universe, right? That'd be.
Or what if they
like,
brought in Tom Holland into the Spider-Verse sequel?
That could be crazy stuff too. They could do a lot of really, really cool stuff with obviously switching back and forth. But Andy didn't hear Electro say that, and when I told him on the way home, he was like super excited because Into the Spider-Verse is one of his favorite movies, and it's one of mine too.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that this is better than Into the Spider-Verse if we compare those two?
As I said at the beginning, I'm not sure. And Into the Spider-Verse was so well done from top to bottom, pacing, everything. They're two different things. To me, I would have thought there's no way they can pull this off in this movie, and they did. So kudos to them for that. So that's what maybe would elevate it up, just because I didn't think they could possibly pull all these characters in together and it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about the same for me. They're both amazing movies.
They are.
And maybe this is even, now that you make me thinking about it, Into the Spider-Verse might be my number 2 and this is my number 3, but it's close. It's not like a huge divide between them.
When you put Into the Spider-Verse into the things, it really it changes things up. Into the Spider-Verse is like another 10, right? Like for different reasons, animation wise, just the way that movie is put together, and I can't wait for the sequel to that one.
Mm-hmm.
But now did you guys stick around for the end, the Doctor Strange trailer?
Which is basically was a trailer.
Yeah. But we got to see Shoggorath, I think that's how you say his name, the eyeball monster.
Yeah.
I used to play as him in Marvel vs. Capcom,
Yeah.
or and yeah, he's gonna be. We got to see him. He looked great. Like he looked like really awesome on the street there, running towards him.
Yeah, and it showed that what if is actually kind of important
Yep.
for that. Because Shumagoth shows up in a ton of those episodes, right? Those giant tentacles
hmm
are always popping out of portals
Yeah,
in
yeah.
What If. And also they revisit the idea of Strange Supreme, right?
hmm
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced he's going to be the final act villain, but they're at least setting it up with that trailer.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a cool trailer.
And I love seeing. Obviously, we knew Wanda was going to be in it, but I two of my favorite characters of all time are Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange. So seeing them together in a movie, I just cannot wait for that.
Could be cool. It's going to be a neat movie. But yeah, so those are the two post credits. If you stick around, you want to watch the first one, the Eddie Brock, and then it goes to the Doctor Strange trailer. So if you happen to catch the Doctor Strange trailer beforehand, you don't have to sit through the rest of the credits. You
That's
can
right.
bounce you can bounce a little early because you're not missing a whole lot there. As far as I'm sure that trailer is going to be up online probably today.
Yeah, I mean,
It was out. It was actually out like a couple days ago.
I saw you share it, but I didn't even click on that link. Nick likes is like, here's the. I'm like, get out of here with that.
No, I said like this.
I know, and I ignored it.
Yeah, but I can't remember what I was going to say. So I will jump back to this other thing. So we weren't too surprised by uh, the other two Spider-Man coming. The one thing that just caught me off guard that had the biggest audience reaction of all is when Charlie Cox showed up.
Oh yeah.
yes.
You know,
Yeah, we didn't
it's
talk about
crazy to think that so much happens in this movie that you forget about a Daredevil cameo. Like
Yeah.
it's like you get home and you're like, oh yeah, Daredevil was in this too. And were they gonna bring? Yeah,
Like I said, the biggest audience reaction, and it wasn't like clapping, but it was like,
yeah.
it was just a
Yeah.
bunch of chatter.
Yeah.
It's like, what's, it was just, and I thought, what? And when he caught the brick coming through the window, I thought, come
remember.
on, how cool was that? That's like, that's all I needed. And
Super
that
cool.
was so early in the movie too. It was like, okay, I am all in right now.
Wait, can we do Hawkeye spoilers too?
I'd rather we didn't, only because I have not seen Hawkeye and I plan on it. So
Okay.
I know you want to dive into
the
that.
timing of
Yes.
Charlie Cox showing up is really interesting with what just happened in Hawkeye.
Yep.
That's good to know. We'll hold on to that one. We got no spoilers going on in here.
Yeah. But wow, I think we've touched on all the major
think we
spoiler
have to.
points, though. I think so. Again, it was just an amazing job of pulling that. It was, I think it was maybe Nick that said it. It said it kind of resolved all the other Spider-Man. It's like everything's been put to bed, and in that
Mhm.
way, it's kind of sad because it's like, oh man, that really is the end of the eras of the Garfield and Maguire movies, but still so well done.
Yeah, I mean, and again, saying it from at the top of this, this movie not only was a love letter to all Spider-Man fans and all these movies, it does make the first three movies and the two Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield better. Being able to dive back into their like kind of history, it kind of makes you want to watch them again too. Like maybe like
Yeah.
I think people are going to leave this movie being like, oh, I got to go back and watch. Maybe I didn't see the second Amazing Spider-Man, or maybe I didn't see. It's been a while since I've seen Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock. I want to watch that, and you'll be surprised on how well they still hold up, and that they make this movie better, and this one makes all of those movies better. So this ties it all up really well.
I was laughing as when Andrew Garfield was down. It's like, no, you're amazing. You're amazing. Say it. You're amazing. But
Yeah.
that was funny.
Oh, and Tobey Maguire, what was he? Was he Spider-Man number 3? I can't remember what they named each
Yeah.
other. They named each other
I think it was
numbers.
2, yeah.
And yeah, I think it was 2.
Two, yeah.
But when he gets stabbed, we kind of think that he gets stabbed, but then he picks him up. He's like, I've been stabbed before. It's fine.
I honestly thought, I said, man, are they going to go there? I'm glad I was ready for it. I'm glad they didn't, but I was ready for it if they did.
I'm glad they didn't. I didn't want them to do that. I was like, please. And I could tell from our audience was like, we heard like no's, like people saying no, like gasping no. We heard like lots of do not go back and kill one of
Right.
these, right?
Well,
Like,
they just done that with Aunt May, so that would have been devastating, right? That's
a
the reason
lot.
why I thought they weren't going to, because I'm like, they just did a major death. They're
Well,
not gonna kill him.
I knew it was
Tobey
gonna
Maguire's
happen
Spider-Man.
though. Like when he came in to stop the glider
Mhm.
and the way the camera was shot on his face,
Right.
I'm like, he's gonna get stabbed. I'm like, now are they gonna kill Spidey? And then it happens, and you're like, are they gonna follow through with this? And they didn't. I think they just made it like a flesh wound kind of thing, and they kind of made a little light of it, and then they disappeared back into their universes.
So here's one quick question before we start wrapping things up. Which is your favorite Spider-Man?
I'm I'm still in Tom Holland. Like I really do like Tom Holland Spider-Man. I think he's young. Ultimate Spider-Man series comics are some of my favorite, and I feel that he captures that the most. The high school Spider-Man that is still kind of navigating being just a kid. And
Hmm.
I think for that reason, and for another reason of his like his sadness does break me. Like when he was sad in Avengers, over disappearing and then coming back, like him and Tony Stark had such a good relationship back and forth. Or not, I don't mean relationship, I mean like chemistry on screen
Hmm.
together. Um, Tom Holland really has me. So I think Tom Holland for me.
I think for me, it's gonna have to be Tobey Maguire. Like old head, like he was the Spider-Man I grew up with, right?
Sure.
The Raimi films are still my favorite, and he kind of transitioned to like the elder statesman role, right? He was like the mentor figure
Hmm.
more in this one.
Yeah.
And you, Marty mentioned that you all have like very specific personalities. Andrew Garfield was the self-deprecating one, right?
Hmm.
Like they're all quippy, they're all Peter Parker, they're all Spider-Man, but they had very distinct personalities. But I'm gonna have to land on Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, and now I remember you said something that reminded me of something I was going to say earlier. Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi's directing the next Doctor Strange. How perfect for him to do
Yeah.
that one.
Really cool.
So anyway, probably Toby, but Tom really elevated himself in this movie for me because now I feel like at the very end of the movie, the decision he made not to reveal himself to his friends, it's like I can't put them through that again. It's like, man, okay.
Hmm.
So now you're moving from a kid to adulthood, and I can't wait to
Hmm.
see where he takes that character from there. And just out of curiosity, where do you think Spider-Man goes from here? Storylines.
Yeah, I think, man, it's kind of tough to say, right? Like, is he going to try to rekindle relationships with MJ and his friend, or is he going to, just try to start anew? I could see the next Spider-Man um, with Peter Parker just taking off for a while, like, right, like leaving, and maybe this could be some. I don't know what arc this would be, right? But I could see him just disappearing and really trying to find, and then maybe getting into some kind of getting wrapped up into something else. But I think he disappears for a little while, and maybe we see something like that.
I'd like to see them focus on a smaller story, like scale back from the big stuff. 'Cause he was just involved with, uh, Infinity War, Endgame, and obviously the multiversal stuff here. So I'd like to see them pull it back, do a smaller story with just Spider-Man, and I think something like Craven the Hunter could really
Mm,
work for something like that.
yeah. Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, geez, if y'all stay with us this far, thank you so much for hanging out. Again, we all absolutely love the movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. I will be seeing it again at some point. My wife hasn't seen it, so I've been trying to stay quiet as I talk
Hmm.
about this so she can't hear the spoilers and stuff.
Hmm.
But again, the final scores were Nick gave it a 10, and Matt and I gave it a 10 out of 10.
I did 10 out of
And
10. Nick's the only one that hated it.
No, 9 out of 10, loved it.
Nick hated it.
I'm not gonna fall for your score inflation tricks. I loved it though.
Listen,
I
we
loved
just
it.
saw it, and yeah, some
I
of
loved
that
it.
could be from just going to see it, right? Like we're coming back, like it was a 10, and maybe next year we like relook at it, but I really don't think so. This is gonna
Yeah,
hold up for
it
me
was
for
a
a while.
legitimately great
It was
movie.
legitimately great.
yeah. So once again, thanks everybody for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoy this sort of content. Give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time with who knows what we're going to be talking now. Maybe some top 5 lists or some more movie reviews. But remember, you can find it all here at Mediavania, and go follow us on Twitter at Mediavania Show. Thanks, guys, and we'll see everybody real soon.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.